I'm ticked off. Look, I'm not doing the normal niceties, okay? Small talk is not my thing anyway. I'm an INTJ, okay? We get down to business right away. If you've ever spoken to me, I don't do small talk. I'll try, okay? I'll try to say little things to your relatives and how you doing and how's the broken arm and how's the kids and blah, 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 blah. But I have to be honest, I don't care. And I'll tell you why, because there's freaking things going on right now in this world that need to be addressed. And I'm sick to death of freaking taxes. I'm freaking sick to death of our government at all levels, federal, state, and local government. I am sick to freaking death. I'll tell you what. Listen, okay, made a little mistake. Thought I'd paid a bill. I wrote it down that I paid a bill, the water bill for the city, run by the city, okay? And apparently I didn't actually pay it, okay? I thought I did, but apparently I didn't, okay? I wrote it down, but I didn't press return or something when I was paying it on the computer, okay? So it caused me to be a little behind. So they were compiling $30 charges, okay? These SOBs told me that they would tow my car on my own property to shut my water off if I didn't move my car, and they had to come down and shut my water off and said it's public access. Look, folks, I don't know what about you, but that's against everything our founding fathers fought for. And if we don't begin asserting our rights, that we actually have rights, that we have private property rights, then the world is gone. There's been no success in the great American experiment. Nothing that our forefathers wanted has been achieved if we don't start standing up for rights like this. You do not have a right to come onto my property and tow my car for any reason. Period. And I told them straight up, I said, listen, you better tell your people that if they come and they try to move my car on my property, I said they're going out in a body bag. And I'm dead serious. I just said that at the city hall. There's no way that we allow this to continue in our country anymore. If I want business with them and they're not open after 5 o'clock, do I break their freaking window at 6 o'clock and say, I demand service right now? Is that what I do? No, well, if they can't get a hold of me, it's their obligation to find a way when I'm open for business and come and ask me to move my car. They don't tell me they're going to tow my car because I'm on my property on a public access point to turn the water off. Oh my gosh. I don't even care about how much the money was, but their fees are ridiculous too. $30? I said, yeah, okay, well, it sounds great if you're making $50,000, $60,000 a year, doesn't it, lady? I said, but I make 15. I said, $30 is a big deal. Because $4 a month or $4 a week, that's how much we spend on dates when I take my wife to Applebee's and we get the appetizers. We get 2 $4 appetizers. That's our dates on the weekends. I don't know where you go. You spend $100 at freaking Outback Steakhouse when you take your wife out to eat. That doesn't happen at our house, okay? We don't have that kind of money. $30 is a freaking big deal. Don't you come and tell me that you're going to come onto my property and tow my car. If you say that, you're going out in a bag. I'm sick of taxes. Now, I live on the Ohio side. It's not as bad over here as 1 mile down the street if you cross the bridge. I live within sight of the bridge. You cross the bridge and you're in West Virginia. Now, over there, you never have a car in your life. You will never own a car, ever. Because the government will property tax your car for the rest of your daggone life. After you've paid off the car, for the rest of your life, you have to pay the government to keep that car. Yeah, Wayne, I'm venting a little bit right now. If we do not assert rights, there are no rights. Rights are not reality because they're on a piece of paper. Do you understand that? You say, well, we have constitutional rights in this country. You don't have a constitutional right unless you assert and force your constitutional right. Do you understand that? I cannot affirm that George Bush said the following statement, but I have heard it said that George Bush, when he was said, no, we can't do that because the Constitution, that he said the Constitution is just a GD piece of paper. I can't affirm the accuracy of that quote, but I've heard it many times. It may or may not be true, but it's true in a sense, because if you don't force your right to have the Constitution, you don't have a Constitution. If you don't have a right to private property by force, you don't have the right to private property. And I'm telling you, in West Virginia, it's time to stand up and start tarring and feathering the people that collect the taxes and say, listen, if you're going to collect property taxes on our car, we're going to mark it down where you live. We're coming to your house with tar and feathers. It's time to get Boston Tea Party on these people. I am sick to death of the way that people think they can just brazenly come and take your money, take your property, and walk into your own house. A social worker thinks they can come to your house. That's hadn't happened in a long time, but I tell you what, I'm sick and mad at our Belpre mayor for multiple reasons. This is one more reason. But when our kid was 8 years old, still in diapers, okay, obviously autistic, okay. She wandered out. She'd never wandered out before, but my wife went in the other room. I was driving up in Columbus, dropping bottles of pee off. Was my job at the time, taking him to the airport from the hospital. And I was 2 hours away, and my wife just went in the other room, and my autistic daughter wandered out. Fortunately, the police found her, but this daggone mayor decided that she had done a crime because she walked in the other room. What? It's now illegal to go and sit in your bedroom because you have an autistic kid. And you know, we had to pay thousands of dollars to fight that. And she can't even work at the church nursery now because not even the people at church have enough common sense to say, hey, listen, I know what happened there, but it's on your record. So, you know, you can't even work at the church nursery. Yeah, I'm sick to death of this government. I hate this government. I hate the Belpre government. I hate the Ohio government. I disgustingly hate the West Virginia government. And I despise the government of the United States as it's being operated right now. No, I don't despise the Constitution. That's the rights of the people that asserted those rights, because they said, listen, we see that these rights are self-evident, given to us by our Creator. They're self-evident. We already have them. The king's not going to give them to us, and we're going to assert them right now. That's how we got independence from Great Britain. And that's how we're going to get independence from Belpre, and that's how we're going to get independence from Parkersburg, and that's how you're going to get independence from your hometown and from your state and from this tyrannical federal government. You're going to have to assert it. You're going to have to let them know, if you come on your property, you better come with guns, because I'm going to have them. Stay off my property. You already say I can't own a car in West Virginia. For the rest of my life, I have to pay the federal government. You're telling me that an old widow lady that's paid her whole life, whose husband has died, gosh, I get mad. This is tyranny. This is what we're fighting. Oh my gosh. That's why I brought milk. Soothe my throat a little bit. You need to tell me that a little old widow lady living on Social Security has to pay the government for the rest of her life to keep her car in her driveway? She's already got to pay a license plate tax. a driver's license tax, a ridiculous inspection tax, and if any little thing's wrong with her car, she has to spend money she doesn't have to fix it. That's America, folks. That's the land of the free and the home of the brave. There is no freedom. Don't you understand that? Don't you understand that they've already taken all of our freedom? Don't you understand that if there's going to be a constitution, you have to assert it again? Yeah, it's time to have 1776 again. It's time. See, folks, this is what happens when I don't take my meds for one day. I actually feel things. The problem is I'd talk like this every frickin' day if I didn't. This is not the America that is supposed to exist. So what do we do about it? Well, we get together. I don't know how we get 5 people to agree on anything except for football. I mean, that's all anybody cares about, sports. I am shocked that so many people go to these daggone stupid sports games, high school sport games. How many hundreds of cars are there? Blows my freaking mind. But nobody will stand up for the widow lady who has to pay a tax on her car for the rest of her life, or they'll come and take her car or her house. She owes the government for the rest of her freaking life. Or the farmer who can't pay his tax because his dad dared to die, and so he inherits the farm, and so he doesn't have hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars to pay the government to inherit it. So he loses everything. By the way, that's how your wicked, tyrannical government took thousands and thousands of properties away from farmers after World War I, sent all the good guys out to fight the war, and then levied a property tax on their property. That's your government that did that, folks. That's your United States federal government that knowingly did that. Took thousands of properties away from people while they're fighting a war. Listen, the only thing that this government, or any government for that matter, will understand is force. Assertiveness, let's say that. No, I'm not saying we need to go and start shooting people right now, but we do need to be forcible. Where can I find 10 people in West Virginia that'll go down to City Hall and say what I'm saying with the same kind of tone to the city council or to the Belpre city council? Can I find 10 decent people in this town? Are there 10 decent people in the Masonic Lodge? Are there 10 decent people at any of the churches who will stand up and say, enough's enough? Can we find 10? 10 people who will assert your God-given right to have private property? I'll tell you what happened in this country. You were supposed to have the right to private property. It was supposed to be in the Constitution, but because of slavery, it got changed a little bit to the pursuit of happiness. But its intention was to be your right to the private property. But if they'd have said private property, then all the slave owners would have said, well, we have a right to have slaves. So they couldn't use the words private property, and it was changed to the pursuit of happiness. Well, I'll tell you what, slavery is now illegal according to the Constitution. It's time to put in the Constitution that you have the right to private property. And then it needs to be enforced. It's your government right now. Your federal government is run by the Queen of England and by Jewish bankers. You say, oh, no, don't go against the Jews. No, the Bible says we're supposed to support the Jews. Well, show me a Jew, for one. You think a bunch of Turkish rabbis that are pretending to be Jews in the military of Israel, you think those are real Jews? You think a bunch of white European Polish people are actually Semitic? And then you come out and say something against Jewish bankers, and they come back and say, oh, you're an anti-Semite. Oh my gosh. Are you? Well, show me who's a Semite. Am I a Semite? Because they're just as white as I am. Joke's on you. Oh my gosh. And you think Jesus Christ would support Israel today the way it is? No. Jesus said there's a time, there was 70 weeks, and there'll be one more week where he turns his attention to it, and it's not there yet, right? The Great Tribulation. Isn't that what they teach you in church? Well, it ain't now. Why don't you listen to what Jesus did say? And he said, stop believing the people that pretend to be Jews, but are of the synagogue of Satan, but they're lying. They're just pretending, saying they're Jews. Why don't we believe anything Jesus says? Why do we go around saying we're Christians, but we don't believe what Jesus says? Oh yeah, but there's that promise back to Abraham, support the Jews is what it said. No, no, it didn't say support the Jews. The Jews are one tribe out of 12. Where did you get that? I mean, it didn't say support the white Europeans pretending to be Jews that are running a Zionist movement to collect interest through their banks for the Queen of England. It didn't say that in the Bible, did it? Oh my gosh. What the heck's wrong with us? And you know what they're going to say? Those of you that have adapted this wrong philosophy, some clown's going to get on here and say, he's just an anti-Semite, and you're going to believe him. And then you're going to jump off here. And I don't know any Semites, frankly. Arabs are Semites, okay? I'm not saying Muslims are Jews, don't get me wrong, but they're Semitic, okay? They're the seed of Shem. You know, what the heck? Why don't we understand our Bible to begin with? I mean, okay, Noah had 3 sons, Ham, Shem, and Japheth. Okay, Ham went to Africa, Shem stayed in the Middle East, Japheth went to Europe. Okay, it's not a racist thing, for heaven's sakes. I'm just telling you, that's where our descendants come from. So a Semitic person is somebody from the Middle East. Benjamin Netanyahu's Polish, people. He's got a Polish name. He's white, like me. He's not a Semite. They tell you you're anti-Semitic because you're not a Zionist. They're freaking liars. And if Christians don't wake up, don't get their theology straight, and don't start believing what Jesus said, who said not to believe that somebody is a Jew who says they're a Jew, but are really of the synagogue of Satan, then all is lost. You say, well, what's that mean about the 144,000 Jewish people in Israel and all this? It doesn't say that. There's 144,000 people, but that doesn't mean what you... By the way, folks, my book, I just finished it today, okay? I am looking for a publisher. I did contact the first one. Doesn't mean anything, okay? Also, my stepbrother on there, Eric, he is currently drawing my cover for me. He's got the idea down. It's going to be pretty awesome. And no, my book doesn't talk about this stuff. It does briefly, a sentence or two, but literally just a sentence or two. My book is about, it's about sacred geometry. Okay. It's about the mounds. And it's important stuff. It's stuff we need to learn and understand. Wow. How many people do not understand their Bibles at all. Don't have a clue what they mean. The vast majority of pastors and preachers are just clueless, honestly. They don't have a clue. They don't know anything what the Bible means. But they keep saying it anyway. And it's no wonder we're in the state that we're in this country, because nobody studies, nobody learns. Everybody just says, this is what I've heard once in my life, so that's it. That must be the sum total of everything that is to be known about a subject, especially the Bible. Last time I was talking about how the number 666 is not even, there's an argument that could be made that it's not even in the Greek New Testament. Okay, because what you have there are Xi and Chi and Sigma, but those don't value 666. The value of those numbers is something far bigger. Okay. You would need to turn the sigma into a digamma to get the value of 666. Oh, Pete. Oh, yeah. You're going to have to go back to the beginning. If I start into it again, Pete, I'll probably lose my voice the rest of the way. I about lost it ranting there for a minute. Gosh, I'm mad. I'm mad at this government. I am mad that nobody stands up. I'll even take 5 people. Okay. Abraham at Sodom and Gomorrah, he went and said, will you spare the city if you give me, 80 people? And then he downed it to 40 and then 20 and then 10 or whatever the numbers were. And finally, if you just give me 10, I'll, will you spare the city? And God's like, yes. So, if you can find, we can't even find 10. I'll go lower than that. Can I find 5 people who will go with me to City Hall in Belpre or Parkersburg and rant like in the same demeanor and attitude that I'm doing it right now, and tell these people that we have a right to property? It is a self-evident right, that our forefathers intended for that to be in the Constitution, except for slavery. But they couldn't put it in the Constitution, else the slave owners would say that we have a right to slavery. So they changed it to the pursuit of happiness. But it's time to have the right, which we already have because it is a self-evident God-given right to property. And you have no right to tax our house, no right to tax our car with property taxes once they're paid for. You have no right to say that we can't own a piece of property and no right to own a car. At my house here in Belpre, my neighbor doesn't have to pay $75 a month for flood insurance. I think that was started under frickin' Obama. Just one more. I don't care who started it, if I'm right or wrong. But they're all wicked and crooked as can be. And they decided that they were going to try to push people out of zones closer to rivers and start with that Agenda 21 crap and start pushing people into more concentrated cities. And part of that was this tax, this flood tax that you have to pay. And had previously had been in 1,000-year floodplain or something like that. And then they go and they change it to a 500-year floodplain. And all of a sudden, the corner of my property, about 2 feet of my property is in that floodplain. Literally about 2 feet on the corner of my property is in that floodplain. So I have to pay $75 a month for 30 years over that mortgage to the freaking federal government. You're going to say that this isn't fraud, this is science, that in 500 years my property is going to flood sometime in 500 years. You understand our country's less than half that age, and you're going to tell me that you have statistics that it's going to flood within 500 years? You talk about a scam. You talk about a bunch of freaking liars. You talk about a bunch of scumbag tax collectors that are taking our money. Enough is enough. We're overtaxed. You say, well, if you don't like the taxes, get out of the federal programs that they give you, like Medicaid. Well, let me tell you something. If the government got out of insurance altogether, the private insurance companies could offer reasonably priced health insurance. Get the government out of it 100%. They force us on Medicaid because they don't offer an affordable alternative because the government's involved in it, period. No government, no regulation, nothing. Just let the companies come in and offer stuff, and somebody will be beating my door down for $30 a month to give me health insurance. Mark it down. It'll happen. One way or another, they'll make it affordable. Get rid of these state insurance. The main? He used to have an insurance license. I can't think of it. Each state has a main insurance guy too. Get rid of them. We don't need that crap. 100% freedom over state lines. That goes for schools too. 100% freedom. Send your kid to any school. Doesn't matter what district you go to. Let them compete. The federal government did fine without a Department of Education all the way up until Jimmy Carter. And now all of a sudden it can't be destroyed. You can't take it. You can't take that. Of course you can. Of course you can. You can remove the Department of Education. And it must go. It has to disappear. The federal government has no right under the Constitution to manage things in individual states like that. Anything that is not enumerated in our Constitution is reserved for the states. You find out where it's enumerated. Find out where it's enumerated in our Constitution. I don't know, Pete. Render under Caesar. Well, I don't think Caesar has his picture on my car or my house. He does have his picture on my money. If he wants some of his money back, he can have some of his money back. But he doesn't have his picture on my car. He doesn't have his picture on my house. And if he does, if he wants to put it on there, he can come through, but he's going to have to go. He's going to have to go through some bullets flying to put it there, because we have a God-given right to property that comes before the rights of Caesar. It's okay, Pete. We have an obligation. Hey, Frank. Oh, gosh, headache today. Probably because I didn't take my meds. Oh, my goodness. I want 5 people. I want 5. I want 5. I want 5 people who say we'll go to city council. Most, I don't think, well, just 1 or 2 people on here right now are even in this area. So I'm asking you to do a rant in your neighborhood. Get on Facebook, find 5 people in your neighborhood. I have gone and ranted myself before. I'm not afraid to do it again. I preached on the street corner by myself before about taxes even. Oh my gosh, that's killing. I'm not afraid to go down there and do things completely alone. I can go down there and yell at people. I don't care. You say, well, you know, so-and-so get mad. You know, your friends won't like you. I don't have any. I mean, I have a few, but I have you guys here online. I mean, I have, you know, there's a few friends on here. Got Crystal and Pete, Teton, Ryan, and Peter. I don't know Peter very well. He might be my friend. Wayne, Eric's my brother-in-law. Who else we got on here? Bobby, I've talked to you a few times. I'm Barrington. Who else is on here? Dana Rose. Ruth. Hey, Ruth. I went to school with Ruth. How you doing? Went to school with Ryan, too. Ryan, start something in Portsmouth, man. One time I went down the street preaching in Portsmouth. One time. But honestly, I was kind of preached out because I used to preach in Chicago all the time. I was hoping some of the others would take the slack, and I think they expected me to do more. That was a long time ago. I don't mind. I'd drive down to you, Greg, to support. Oh, that'd be awesome, Wayne. I don't know where you live, man. This is the bottom of Ohio. You know, you say, well, it's only $30, or, you know, I think they compiled 2 $30 fees on me. It's just kind of like the needle in the haystack on these taxes. Of course, I'm ticked about all this stuff all the time. They have no right to be charging me $75 a month for a flood tax. My neighbor doesn't even have to pay it because that floodplain doesn't touch the corner of her property. I think the other neighbor does. And these are just, you know, these are just small houses, you know, next to each other. These aren't, you know, big, long, huge, you know, 8 hours away. See, that's the kind of commitment, Wayne. If we're going to make any business, I mean, if we're going to make any difference, we're going to have to, you know, we're going to have to make those kind of commitments where we support each other and drive 8 hours or whatever. By all means, man, you want to go yell in your neighborhood, I'll go up there and yell in your neighborhood. I'm serious. I just want people to see what they're doing. You know, your school is public property. It is. Well, that's what they always say, right? Well, you have if you have a right to preach on the sidewalk, don't you have a right to preach at your school? Oh, let that sink in for a minute. You know, in the Philippines, it's in their constitution. I have a copy of it here. I think it's here on my shelf if I didn't lose it behind me. But in their constitution in the Philippines, It explicitly says that a school district cannot deny an evangelist, pastor, preacher, whatever, religious figure, whatever it says, whatever word it uses, from teaching in your school, so long as they're invited by the principal or whatever. Nobody can deny it. So all you have to do is just go ask the principal, can we come? And he's like, yeah. They always say yeah, and that's what we need here. These rights are self-evident. Okay, hey, you're way up there, Wayne. Good heavens, probably already got 10 feet of snow in Buffalo. I mean, what is it, October now? Only 75 more feet of snow to go. Oh, heavens. I know, I'm exaggerating. Not quite yet, huh? We got a right. We got a right in this country that is self-evident to private property. We do not need anyone to give us that right. We need to assert the right that we already have. It is self-evident. It is God-given. And that is the understanding of John Locke. That is the understanding of our founding fathers, who, by the way, John Locke was one of the most quoted philosophers of the founding fathers. Go read. I got a couple of his books here behind me. Go read some John Locke books. You have the right to private property, and it comes from God. God grants you that right whether the government does or not. You have an obligation to defend it whether the government gets in your way or not. Do you understand that? The Queen of England has no right to our property here. They don't have the right to quarter their soldiers in our houses. And they daggone sure don't have a right to tax my house till my dying day. I think there's one state. I think it's Nebraska. Maybe it's North Dakota. I think there's one state that doesn't have property tax in this country. One. And how much you want to bet if things continue as they have been in this country, they'll give in to that too. Hey, Pete. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Pete. If I didn't mention you, I'm sorry. Anybody else I missed? That's right. We are the kings in this country. You and I are the kings. Not those freaking socialists that run your city council bureaucracy. Not your socialist social workers. We even call them social workers. And somehow they get away with that. You're near London, Ontario. Oh, dang, Wayne, you still are a subject of the Queen, technically. Canada needs to start asserting their rights in a big-time way. Kick her out once and for all. She should have no right to call the Prime Minister for anything into England. Kick her out once and for all. She comes to visit sometimes and picks up kids to do terrible things to them. It's time to completely the Queen of England needs to be overthrown. I would support a war against the Queen of England. I really would. I would if America suddenly got its senses and said we were going to go bomb London and take out the Queen, I'd sign up. I wouldn't make it because I'm not healthy enough to do it. But heck, I'd volunteer. I'd give money. I'd do something. I'd raise war bonds or something. Nothing more wicked than the Queen of England. Nothing. And I mean that, except for maybe the Pope. Okay. The Pope and the Queen of England are the two most evil forces on this earth. That includes Islam. Okay. They're more evil than Islam. Islam's wicked. Don't get me wrong. I'm not supporting Muslims. I mean, maybe Muslims individually, but I'm not supporting Islam. I'm not supporting the Quran by any stretch. Of course, Islam doesn't even understand its own religion, just like most Christians don't. Wait till you read my book. I do explain it. Okay. Please buy this book, man. If you have any questions about when it comes out, it ain't out yet. Okay. I just finished writing it today, but, if you want to understand what Islam and what Christianity is really about, okay, get my book. I explain it to you. Okay. Islam uses the same sacred geometry as witchcraft. I'm not kidding about that. And I'm not even making fun of them. But the witches are taking it from a different angle, obviously. Okay. but they're using the same symbols and the same sacred geometry. Some of it Christianity uses, by the way. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying the Christians are witches. Don't pervert what I'm saying. Read the book and get the understanding correct, okay? So it'll come out one of these days. Hope if this publisher doesn't bite, then, and I hope they do. But if they don't, I'll get it out there one way or another. I'll do like Zach Hubbard did, put it on Etsy or something. We'll figure it out. Yeah, the queen is a tyrant. Absolutely. Still has a warrant out for her arrest, but since we live in her courts, she can't be prosecuted. Yeah. Are you talking about the common law courts? Technically, they don't have recognized power, but they do have the right to do what they do, and it's a God-given right. And I think common law is stronger than royal law. Is that what? I don't know the definition of it. Regal law. Common law definitely should outweigh anything the queen says. Yeah, I got Zach's book, man, Frank. I got it back right when I was first getting into it, back in February or March or something like that. I quoted it in my book, by the way. Little passage on the 108s. Got a little piece of it in there. It's in the bibliography. Put it down as self-published. I guess that's how you do it. Actually, I had 2 books on there that are self-published. So, I don't care about anything that's understood by the establishment. I don't care if establishment people think something is true or not. It's true because it's either factual or it isn't. That's all I care about. Okay. And if I can verify those facts to myself and I understand them and believe them to be true, then I'm going to support and use those facts, period. And by the way, just because I support a author in my book does not mean that I support every position of the author. Okay. The Quran is in my book. I don't support Muhammad. Okay. But I did quote it. Muhammad's wicked. Okay. Don't get me wrong for 1 second. Muhammad is a wicked son of a gun. I mean, anybody who says that you have to, your wife has to walk 4 feet behind the husband, or that the testimony of a woman is half that of a man, or, what else they do. And they're applied differently in different parts. I get that. You got Sunni and Shia and different types. You even have some that are somewhat Gnostic. And those are the kind of people I think we'd agree with for the most part. The Gnostic sect of, at least I've heard. I haven't studied it. There is an actual Gnostic sect of Islam, but they're not nearly as big as the other two. For the BC missing indigenous kids. Yeah. Yes. And there was a school, a Catholic school. I think she visited there and took a bunch of kids back to England, and they never were seen from again. The pedophile networks in this country are real. Okay. It's time to come to terms with that. It's time to do something about it. Trump knows it. And he is placating our groups a little bit by going after the low levels. And he did throw, what's his name, under the bus too. Epstein. Okay. He threw Epstein under the bus. He did. But Trump went to Epstein's island as well. Okay. You got to understand it wasn't just Clinton. You understand all these people are in it together. Okay. Trump's doing a lot of good things, and I support the good things that he's doing. I really do. But when you understand that he has the knowledge of what happened on 9/11, you can't just overlook that. He knows exactly what happened. And so does that former God's mayor, or whatever, America's mayor, and he might as well think of himself as God's mayor. The former mayor there in New York City. He knows what happened. He knows it wasn't Muslims. He knows it wasn't Osama bin Laden. He knows that's a load of crap. We still pay taxes to the Queen, and we never broke free from England. Not for a second, Frank. We have never broke free from England well, yeah, we did. We broke free until shortly after Hugh's ancestor, Andrew Jackson. Once Andrew Jackson freed us from the banks, they started coming back in. Lincoln fought him and said, we're going to issue the greenback, and so they killed him for it. Okay. Kennedy tried to issue a little bit of money from the Treasury, and immediately they killed him. Okay, that's how it works in this country. The banks are run by Jews. People calling themselves Jews are a synagogue of Satan. They're not real Jews, and they're not Semitic. They're phony. They're liars. They're what Jesus said are the synagogue of Satan. Okay. Like, do you think we should listen to Jesus when Jesus says that we should watch for Jews that are not Jews but are of the synagogue of Satan? You want me to quote it to you here? Let me quote it to you, okay? You don't believe me. Here's my Bible right here. Let me quote it to you. I want to tell you what Jesus said. Because we as Christians have just decided we're just going to ignore Jesus on this. So we're just going to just be like, yeah, who's Jesus who? Yeah, we're going to go back and we're going to just say that that the promise to Abraham was that we're supposed to support the Jews and Zionist Israel. That's what we're supposed to do, right? Yeah, that's exactly how that reads back here in Exodus, yeah, or yeah, Genesis, I guess. Okay, let's go back to Revelation 3. Where was it? 3:9. Behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews, and are not, but do lie. Behold, I will make them to come and worship before thy feet, and to know that I have loved thee. Huh. Well, Jesus said those people are going to come worship before our feet. These people that are pretending to be Jews, but they're not Jews. You know, Polish people who are as white as I am. You know, like Benjamin Netanyahu, because that's not his real name. He took on that name because Netanyahu, after Hugh Squire. And if you don't know the Hugh Squire story, go learn that story. Go listen to Hugh's full moon videos every month. And you'll understand that the Pope is named after Hugh. His middle name is Francis. And he's not making that up, okay? There's a reason for that. 9/11 happened to bury Hugh, for heaven's sakes. They owed him hundreds of billions of dollars, okay? And I'm not making that up. I finally understood what's going on. And I don't mean like personally owed him. But what they stole, okay, was a trademark that was that's being used in everything. And even the bar association was using it, for heaven's sakes. All these people owed him money. And they all knew it. And he had helped rewrite the Berne Convention, and they knew they were going to lose in court. His case was in the Pentagon. And then they lie to you and tell you that flight 77 minutes after takeoff, hit the 77-foot Pentagon, a load of baloney. And then you see the hole in the Pentagon, and, somehow they hit the 77-foot tall building at the bottom of it with a jetliner. And it's just this little hole. There's no wing holes. They managed not to hit any of the light poles in front of the building. And we're supposed to believe that a big old huge jetliner did that. We're not that stupid, are we? Are we that naive, or have we just not watched the videos? I mean, they're out there. You can find them. I have them. If you want them, I'll send them to you. If you still haven't seen them, if you don't care enough about your countries, you've never taken the time to look, I'll send them to you. By the way, if you want to know how fake that video was, that shooting down in New Zealand that they used to take all the guns away down there, I can send you the video. It's illegal in New Zealand. They'll put you in jail for watching it, but I'll send it to you. I have it. If you're in New Zealand, I'll send it to you. Just don't tell anybody. I mean, you tell them all you want that I sent it to you, but don't tell your authorities that you have it. And you willingly gave up your guns, you bunch of freaking cowards, you bunch of worthless sissies, you bunch of human garbage, that you would actually just give in to the tyranny of your government that staged a fake shooting. Oh no, they killed those people. Don't get me wrong, but they threw those fake bodies that they were shooting. Yeah, Christchurch. Yeah, all those fake bodies that they were shooting around in that video, and no blood splatters or anything like that. And they used that, and they killed those people just like our government did on 9/11 to affect change for the Queen of England and to bury people like Hugh Squires and to start wars and to start the military industrial complex going again, where they can hire thousands of killers in the Middle East, and then they come back to this country, and then they become the mafia hitmen and the killers for celebrities and for politicians over here to do their business of getting rid of their political enemies. You understand what your country really is? You understand what's really going on? No, you don't. No, you don't understand. Listen to Hugh, and then you'll understand it. Give Hugh the time of day. Okay? You know, it is my opinion that the most correct people in the world are the humblest people in the world that come down and are at the bottom and they're just telling the truth. I think God uses those people more than anybody else. Listen to Hugh. They put that guy who was a freaking multimillionaire. He's living in an RV now. And they took everything from him, killed his 4 wives, piled dead bodies up on his property over and over and over again. Dead kids, by the way. And he reports them. And the FBI hangs up the phone. And he records it and tells you. The police refuse to take reports on the dead bodies of children on his property. Not just once, a lot of times. That's the government. That's the country you live in. Of course they set up 9/11. and buy my book, okay? And I'm not doing it to make a ton of money, okay? Maybe I'll make money, maybe I'll go in the hole. I don't even know. I don't even care. But I'm telling the truth, and I want the truth out. You don't put things like Hugh Squire's story in a book. You know, if you want to get rich and famous, okay? Last person who did that got shot, okay? Last person said he would do that. No, I'm not kidding. Jim Mars. Yeah, I always get him mixed up with Tex Mars. Jim Mars offered to print Hugh Squire's story, and they killed him. Well, I did it. Screw it. I'm not doing this to get rich. It's time to tell the truth. You want to stand up? You want to stand up and tell the truth? Does truth matter? Do your rights matter? Do your own property matter? Do your grandmothers matter? Do your wives? Do your mothers matter? You think the government has a right to tax them when they're making a few $100s a month for the rest of their life on their car and their house? And if not, they'll come and take it away. You're comfortable living in a country like that? I'm not. Screw all of them. Anybody that can't understand that, well, too bad for you too. What kind of worthless people have we become in this country? Hey, Joey, how you doing? Joey's in my book, by the way. So is Jonathan. Hey, Jonathan. I don't know that particular executive order, bud. I don't have memorized, believe it or not. You have to specify for me what you're talking about. Kennedy executive order. Are you talking about Kennedy's executive order to print money through the Treasury? Is that maybe what you're talking about? I did hit on that. Yes, I got quotes from Jonathan and Joey in my book, so they will get a free copy of my book. For sure. And let's see, I don't know, probably, I didn't count them, but 12, 15 websites in the bibliography, probably about 11 or 12 books. I mean, it's decently documented. But I was talking about how people like Hugh Squires, they're the people I think God uses to tell the truth. People nobody else will listen to. Because it seems like, Jesus came in, wasn't a whole lot of people. Listen, I mean, yeah, there were throngs of people there for a while. Okay, there were. But think about how oppressed he was by the government. Hugh Squires had everything taken from him. For goodness sakes, if anybody's telling the truth, listen to him. If anybody's been oppressed, listen to this guy. That's where the truth those are the kind of people the truth comes from. You know, I was listening to the guy that they threw in prison, Kent Hovind. They threw him in prison because for taxes, okay? Because and he had all his legal research done, but they didn't care. They just were persecuting him because of his Christian ministry and his Christian testimony, because he was against the dinosaur. I mean, he was against evolution and all this. And so, you know, state government persecuted him, threw him in jail for 10 years or 12 years, however it was, for some a tax law that was meant for gangsters. Okay, and they persecuted him, threw him in prison. It was a, what do they call that? Gosh, I wish I could, my mind work better. Structuring. There we go. So they made this concept of structuring. He took money out of his own bank account in amounts more than $3,000. And so they put him in jail for that for 12 years. His own bank, his own money. You understand that? That's the kind of corrupt country you live in right now. Are you comfortable living in that kind of a country? Well, Kent Hovind, who was persecuted himself, was talking about once in one of his videos about Ron Wyatt. Ron Wyatt's dead now, but Ron Wyatt, I agree with Kent Hovind on Ron Wyatt. If God was going to use anybody, it'd be a guy like Ron Wyatt. Ron Wyatt is literally, every video I see just seems like the humblest, nicest, most wonderful person you'd ever meet. And he says, and I can't deny a personal testimony, okay? If you want to deny it, that's between you and God. I'm just going to tell you what the man said. He said with his own eyes, he saw the Ark of the Covenant in a cave in Zechariah's cave, Zechariah's something, okay? And the Jews now know where it is. The people calling themselves Jews, the synagogue of Satan, the liars, the ones that we just read from Revelation 3:9 that are of the synagogue of Satan, that say they are Jews but do lie. They know where it's at. Okay. But according to Ron Wyatt, every time one of them goes in there, they fall down dead. Listen, you know, it's a personal testimony. You either believe it or you don't. I believe it, just to be honest. I'm not going to lie. I think he's telling the truth. I really do. If God's going to use anybody, it's going to be a guy like Ron Wyatt. Somebody that not very many people listen to, who's humble. No, he didn't make millions of dollars. W-Y-A-T-T. Go look at his, I don't know, he died at least 10 years ago. Maybe longer than that. Maybe 20 years ago. What an awesome testimony that guy had. Some of the things he discovered. Go back and look at his discoveries, you know. Go back and look at Bob Cornuke, who, now this guy, I believe him just a tiny bit less had I not seen his videos, because he did make money. I mean, he made quite a bit of money. Hey, Tom, I just saw you at the library, man. Tom's the $6 million man. Busted his arm all up. Falling out of a truck, I guess. Jumping out of a truck, grabbed the pole and broke his arm or something. Poor guy. He got something on his arm and he looks like a robot. I called him the $6 million man over at the library. Looks like the $6 million man. Anyway, what was I saying? Ron Wyatt, and then I said the guy, the search for the real Mount Sinai, Bob Cornuke. Okay, had he not had the videos, I'd have a hard time believing what he said. Okay, but when you see the videos, it's amazing. He snuck into Saudi Arabia, where the Bible says that the real Mount Sinai is, not where the Catholic Church says the Mount Sinai is, which is a sham, an obvious sham. Why do people think that Mount Sinai is where the Catholics say it is, if they've read their Bible? I mean, you know, did you understand it said, you know, Midian and all that, you know, past the springs, you know, Split Rock of Horeb? Did any of those names mean anything? Well, they're not down there at where the Catholic version of Mount Sinai is. Obviously, they're lying. Okay, they're diverting you from the truth. Well, they forged papers from the king of Saudi Arabia to be allowed into the country. Okay, these guys were committing a little bit of crimes, I guess. Yeah, you forged the king's documents over there. You'd probably get you in trouble if you got caught, right? But anyway, the real Mount Sinai is surrounded in barbed wire and has military outposts around it. And at the bottom of it, there is an altar filled with inscriptions of Egyptian hieroglyphs of bovine characters, because if you've read the Exodus, you understand that the children of Israel, only one of whom was Jewish, by the way, they rebelled against Moses and against God, and they built a golden calf. And here you have an altar, a stone altar with bovine calves all over it. That blows my mind, folks. And I'm the one telling you that the Bible's mathematical and that you can understand the Bible through math. I'm telling you the truth, but that's true too. There's 12, I don't know, pillars, what's left of pillars, I think they were, of the 12 tribes of Israel, just like it says in the book of Exodus, around this mountain. And then you go to the top of the Mount Sinai and you see that the entire thing is charcoaled. You can see the layer where the charcoal starts. The whole thing. It's not a volcano. It's not a volcanic mountain. It's a regular mountain. There's no volcanoes next to it. But all the rocks on top are black and charcoaled and melted. And then they take one of the rocks and they break it in half. And you see that it's only melted on the outside of the rock. You know, the Bible says the fire of God fell down on that mountain. Wow, you know, listen to people like that. Listen to Bob Cornuke. Listen to Ron Wyatt. Listen to Kent Hovind. These people are telling truth as best they can. That doesn't mean you have to agree with every last thing they say. For heaven's sakes, but they've got some information. Some of these people have really been willing to put their necks on the line. Been thrown in jail. I have my book over here. Let's see, where is it? I don't have it. Yeah, where did I put it? I had it here earlier. Yeah, it's probably behind me on my shelf. I thought I saw it. Pilgrim's Progress. You know John Bunyan? Listen, that's the kind of guy that's used from God. I mean, he gets thrown in prison, you know. Wife and kids come and ask him to repent, you know, so that he can, or to give in to the government so he can come home, and he's no, you know, writes Pilgrim Progress in prison. You know, it's Kent Hovind, man. I mean, put in jail for not teaching evolution. Evolution's a fraud. For heaven's sakes, it's an obvious fraud too. Like, how dumb do you got to be and think that life comes from non-life in this scientific age? Have you ever observed life coming from non-life? Now, the scientific method says an experiment has to be observable and repeatable. Okay, either observe it or repeat it. Make life from non-life. Remember, it happened by itself. Should be pretty easy if you add a little intelligence to it. But apparently you're not even intelligent enough to do it. So what's that tell you? A higher intelligence must have done it. Oh, that's real hard to understand. But they put you in jail for that in the United States of America. Do you understand? And charge you with structuring because they don't like what you're preaching. So they come up with something that was made for drug users, which is illegal under the Constitution to begin with, even for drug users, by taking your own money out of your own bank account in an amount greater than $3,000. How many of you know that you can go to jail for that in the United States of America? Well, he did. And by the way, when he got out, the IRS apologized to him. That's how wrong they knew they were when they did it. So if you heard false about Kent Hovind, go get his story. If you think he's lying about something, go get his story. And I'm ticked about what's going on in this country, and I'm saying it's time to use force. I don't mean go and shoot everybody, but I'm talking about being assertive. I'm talking about standing up for what we have, which are rights given by God, not by government. Your rights are yours whether the government agrees with them or not, whether it approves of them or not, and even if it disapproves of them, they're still your rights because they're given by God, not by man. You have the right to property. You have the right to keep your car if the government decides they think you should come, they can come and get it because you didn't pay your property tax. You have a right to it. And if they come to get it, somebody should get shot. That's when you should shoot people. If they come to move your car or tow your car on your own property and they step foot on there without a warrant, without legitimate constitutional means to be on your property, or some social worker thinks they can come into your house when you have a constitutional right to keep them out and you tell them to leave and they still insist on coming in, that's when you have a right to use deadly force. You have a right to privacy. You have a right to private property. You have constitutional rights, maybe. You have rights given by God that are also mentioned in the Constitution. Rights don't come from the founding fathers. The founding fathers recognized what God had already granted them. Well, folks, before a vein explodes out of my forehead, I'm going to go calm down. I don't know how long it's going to be until I get that book out. It kind of depends on how fast publishers get in touch with me, whether or not anybody's interested. If, I don't know how many I'll try before I just put it up on, do something like Etsy or whatever, but it does explain Islam. Islam explains Christianity. It explains witchcraft. It explains so many things. The title of it is Why is the Moon a Cube? It is not a flat earth book. In fact, it's going to tell you how the ancestors of our human, how our human ancestors thousands of years ago knew the size of the earth and the sun and the moon. The exact size of the sun and the earth and the moon. Thousands of years ago. If they knew the size, they must have known what shape it was. Think about that for a second. That's all in my book. And it's encoded in the mountains in Marietta. The size of the moon, size of the earth, it's up there in Marietta right now. And I think I made a pretty good case for it. So I hope that whets your appetite for it when it does finally come out. And thanks for watching. And if you're willing to join me, you're willing to pick a time, you want to come down and just yell at people in city council, I'll skip my meds on purpose that day too, okay? I promise you I don't feel anything. That's why I take my meds, because I would yell like this. That's why I take my meds, because if I didn't, I'd yell like this every freaking day I came on here. But sometimes you have to skip them just so you can tell the truth. I'm telling you, it really is. But I would literally hurt people if I didn't take them, because this is how I feel about everything. Everything's black and white to me. It's an INTJ thing. It's partially born with it, but it's also just a part of learning and accepting and knowing truth. The more that you spend time learning and understanding truth, the more how valuable you'll see that truth, and the more you'll want to stand up for it yourself. So thanks for watching. And if you find this on YouTube, please like, share, and subscribe, because it probably won't be up for very long on YouTube after some of the things I said on here. Probably not on Facebook either, but we'll see. Later.